So there's an influence that's turns into like a physical conditioning, and the physical conditioning has niche narratives, and those narratives could be like eventually equalized, but you have to have a more balanced narrative to override that, which would detect that as some type of obsoletism, because not all narratives are true for you. Like, there is a natural way that no one cares. Obviously, I recognize and respect that, um, because we have to worry about ourselves. And since we have to worry about ourselves, as we're worrying about ourselves, we don't know how long it will take for our own self-discovered path to know what it means to kind of like spiritually grow up. Because to spiritually grow up, it's like you're kind of letting things just play out. You're letting other things do their thing because it's not you. The things that are positively not you, and the things that are delusionally not you, and those have subtle influences to what you are and how you're crafting it casually, your surface level physical narrative. And that's a product of your physical body's human vessel's evolution. But there's niche approaches is what I'm kind of trying to like make people see. And there's different like methodologies obviously within, seeing like energetically how, if we don't cast judgment, when we don't cast judgment, that's like an esoteric hygiene maturity. And the esoteric hygiene maturity is we're knowing how to manage the energy within like the situation of just like a whole different psychology respectively. And the whole different psychology is it's just a whole different way of being, because like a whole different psychology is a different species, quote unquote species, end quote, respectively, because if it's a different state of energetic being, then the different state of energetic being by natural casual way would have a different psychology, like overall pretty much. And within that, the quote unquote new human, end quote, is being introduced to something like that force of nature or energy being. And within that stuff, the human is casually going along for the ride on the Earth spaceship, respectively, as if it's own like carousel, and that already being its own concept since like the 1900s, obviously, because that's when it was kind of like something of that like particular object invention was kind of like brought in and forth as something as like an invention or somewhere nearby that time. I'm not saying like the time the time is accurate, but within like the spiritual growing up and the spiritual quote unquote spiritual maturity, end quote, that obviously it's a whole different psychology. So since it's a whole different psychology, we're seeing how the human psychology is meeting like some other like I guess quote unquote celestial, end quote, psychology, like, and within that, that's the new psychology, respectively, casually, generally, of the human being, because the human beings that are being brought along for the ride upon just the treadmill of Earth, or the waves of Earth, within that, we're being brought into a whole new, different collective bubbles that aren't just like mental, but they're like they're and not just physical, but they're also like they're kind of like transient, and they have like a time. They're subject to expiration. That's the trick of the physical world. Like the physical world, somehow it's like it's subject to some type of expiration more so than the original soul, because the original soul is the thing that houses all material, because that's a macro kind of truth right there. If everything is in reverse, well, we would have to see that in the respective macro lens, and the physical is in the spiritual, pretty much on like a more like metaphysical platter and non-plateau platform. So it's obviously, it's like, it's good to worry about yourself, and as you're worrying about yourself, that's all that really matters on the natural tip. And it's so like dumb simple. It's so like, it's like stupid simple. Like that's how like strange it is. It's strange that we can align with higher like spiritual intelligence and spiritual psychologies pretty much, because we're just like foreign and absent to that. And I get everyone's like, vantage point, how like we all have like this, unique war aspect differently, and we just hide it, because that's just the game of like what it means to be a human. It's within the program, but it takes God's miracles to transform even that is the original anomaly. Because we all know what an anomaly is at this point, but what is like, the original one, that is the spark before creation, before transformation, and before preservation. Because what was before preservation for something even to get preserved in the first place? And I got a drink to crack. Weird tea. What flavor is it? Ooh, passion fruit black tea. The troll with the third eye open. Weird tea. It's a magenta can. And this troll got fangs, mofos. So within this troll, I'm just gonna like let things be, For a time being, we only have a moment to share. Why not make the most of it regardless of the moment? Because the moments pass. Things are transient. Not just the physical arena that we're on, that's transient, even though that's a different transient time length span. How we're moving upon the amusement park, metaphysically speaking, those moments within our emotional water bodies, and how that emotional water body has a subtle connection to the ethereal bodies. That's different types of transientness, physical transientness, emotional transientness. Hopefully that could be like healed and balanced. And naturally, obviously, just to like to kind of like more or less worry about yourself, care about yourself, and seeing, and more or less like accurately, if it's in your like intelligence to do so, like where we're at with this whole hype of everything, whole hype of anything, because the hype of everything, it only matters where we're at. Like in the end of in the bigger picture of it, it really doesn't do that much justice for us to constantly compare ourselves to others, because it's only you and the universe. And the universe, wherever it has put you, it's because that's how far you've came. But the thing that I'm trying to make clear is like there's also a new everything, like there's a whole new arena pretty much. And within that whole new arena, it's that like even what I said recently, that's a half truth, simultaneously true and false. Like like only worry about yourself because only you, like only your own survival concern is of your priority. And within your survival concern being of your priority, that survival concern is it's in a new arena. Like it's on a unique precipice threshold within a time transitioning from how whatever we just got out of, it's capped off. It in itself has different metaphysical plateaus. The narratives and the uses of those systems have reached different ends. Technological plateaus, the different types of plateaus of the material world, because within the material world, once it has a certain type of accumulation with different solidified elements, and those different solidified elements have reached its cap in certain stages within a time field frame, and go back to my recent video, which I haven't posted, those time field frames have a unique spiritual esoteric plateau. It's all the energies have ran its course, and somehow on a different level, how we're approaching and using a certain plateau of the technological physical landscape, the usage therein within all of those two, it has also reached a plateau. Because if we're going into a new stage of light, then the old stage of light activity, which was lesser light, because I believe we're going into a transition of even the field of light is changing. We're also like, whatever the earth is, and we being on the treadmill of earth, the earth being on a different treadmill of like some type of solar system, and the solar systems being some type of treadmill on the galaxy. Wherever we're ultimately going, we're going into a whole different particular region of light. like a particular type of light, and within that light is the thing that's washing us out of how the spaceships of Earth have been in a time wave of darkness, a particular darkness, a particular elongated darkness. But that doesn't say that there wasn't different types of like subtle lights, esoteric lights, and within those subtle esoteric lights, we were working in a different time age of dark. We were coming out of the dark ages, to put it simply. And as we're coming out of the dark ages, we're there for a particular elongated amount of time, but that isn't necessary. But we were all like interacting with our own unique, multifaceted life, multifaceted self differently, and how the different multifaceted selves kind of casually collide with other multifaceted selves. That's a new creation of new combustive esoteric light. Because this is like, we're talking about light that was a different light that was like millions of years ago, and we're just a new human being perhaps having an upgrade and using, something that we already are, and like the universe already using that shit as what it is, a different type of original like light, And as we're cruising out of this age of darkness, it's reset across the board. We have new chances at everything. New chances at like a metaphysical reality. Metaphysical meaning the region in what the Earth and the solar system were, it's moving out of a particular phase of darkness because that time has plateaued, and our relationship and how we use the time and just the things that has generally plateaued, because this other stage of light and how other beings are interacting with that light, they're bringing and upholding and preserving the new methods of how there's a more advanced way than what the dark ages were, a different type of compare and contrast of just like ages, like a different context of comparing and a different context of contrasting. It's seeing the different ages, the different yugas of time, and within those different yugas of time, we're at the particular threshold. So there's a threshold of like quote unquote vibe, end quote, and that word's not even appropriate for this explanation, but that's not necessarily the point here. The point here is like there's a threshold mechanism feel to it. There's a threshold mechanism frequency and vibration. There's a threshold mechanism vibration vibe, meaning we're moving through the times from one yuga to a different yuga simultaneously. That has a physical spaceship, and that physical spaceship is getting upgraded, so that's a transition of physical. And within that transition, we're on the threshold, and as we're crossing that threshold, we're also interacting however the fuck we do with quote unquote higher versions of other hopefully balanced, progressive constructive beings, end quote. And as we're doing that, that is the essence of the threshold. And shout out to the predecessors, obviously, but this is the essence of the threshold. And it's going beyond the rhetoric of it too. What do I mean by the essence of the threshold? We're in a transitional phase of how we're concluding an age, a yuga of time, and that field of time carried a certain bandwidth of darkness and lightness. And within how we were using just the material spaceship within the crux of before this dark age, and slightly before this dark age was a lesser dark age. And there's a line between that, and from that line, that was indicative of the contrast of how we use the spaceship from something of more dark to lesser dark. And we're coming out of both of those, lesser dark and more dark, and we're inner thresholdalizing ourselves with all of the dimensions, because it's all resonance it's all like advanced resonance in the end. And what advanced resonance is, it's either we're really gonna like get the anomaly miracle to spiritually grow up and like let things be and not judge, because the whole point is, if you're judging, you're giving unwarranted like subconscious warfare to yourself. And for me to put it so clearly is a fucking miracle, dude, respectively, because you're also like the esoteric psyche within your metaphysical mind brain and metaphysical brain mind. Your esoteric psyche is like it's influenced to some degree in some portion and percentage how it's arranging your whole fucking body. So the esoteric psychology, it's like when you're judging your like your whole shit's getting rearranged metaphysically, metaphysically, and as your whole shit's getting rearranged, there's a certain part of your psyche aura that's leaking and spending energy that's not necessarily needing to be spent. And as you're spending energy, something else also casually, subtly, metaphysically coming through on a sub level, though not like nothing major, but and within that has a micro influence to like how what we spend energy, now something is being traded and we have to charge. We don't have to spend energy. We don't have to esoterically judge, because if we're esoterically judging, we're suddenly, defuncting our own esoteric hygiene of ourselves, because you're spending energy where you don't need to spend energy. And for me to put it that simple, I'm just like, it's because of the predecessors. But that's all I really wanted to say. Is like, nature and how it's behind all of the technical factions. The human doesn't know that we're paying the tab to nature, and we could get confused because it's like, why, like for me to override all of my human complaining, right? For me to override all of my human complaining, what would that really, really, really take? It would really take me realizing what's ultimately charging us. And nature is hidden behind the technological factions, because nature is something like, the bigger nature is like, there has to be a bigger nature, bigger than AI, most respectively, in the organic universe. And as that's happening, little do we know, nature could be the one rearranging a different type of algorithm. And as it's arranging that algorithm, it's the algorithm of the humans and how they experience circumstances. Because if everything is paying nature, and any type of like new physical agency is just trying to like, have a unique transaction with you, not good, not bad, then nature behind it is ultimately like kind of like pulling the strings, because it's shifting you and that. And how we fall out of balance out of the realization of that makes us pay, unnecessary other middlemen that aren't necessary, because this is advanced fucking intelligence. Shout out to the predecessors. And as we're doing that, real sovereignty is constituted by us knowing how we could pay the source, respectively, and how we could get a balanced income and outcome. It's in the words, shout out to the predecessors. And as I keep on saying shout out to the predecessors, there's like an accumulative gratitude within that, the gratitude of like the collective anomalies, where everybody is their own anomaly, right? So the anomaly is just to really be, to self-realize, to self-exist, and to realize the work of you that needs to be done to balance your quote-unquote tab, end quote, with source behind nature behind all the physical shit, and then us, being a unique creation on all of that. And now we're figuring out what real sovereignty is, respectively, to like, the predecessor's definition or whatever. So this is just kind of like one tab to say like, okay, this is how like we're also at the start of getting over the essence of the threshold. It's like everything is like, it's not just it's a metaphysical free for all for you, because you have a new chance to like reinvent yourself physically, literally, like in a balanced, pure way. You have the chance to reinvent yourself physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, like just the standard shit, like all of that. There's a significant reset, particularly with that simplicity. And within that simplicity, that is like the real natural hype of you, because liberation, whatever ultimately is the source of liberation, it's giving us the chance to experience all of this, all of the fucking
all of the bad, all of the good, all of the balanced, all of the fucking random, you know, some type of field essence of liberty is giving us the chance to somehow pivot into this reset of reinventing yourself physically, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. But we could be low octave within that. We could be on the deep end, because if you like, there's still a healing that needs to be taking place. And if I could like provide my healing services to anybody who's think I've stole from them, then I could casually pay the tab back to everybody, to fucking your middlemen that already were on shaky grounds with nature. I already overpaid the tab with nature, and I overpaid the tab with God. But that has a non-duality to it once you're balanced with nature and the physical shit, you know. Because the physical shit, they, in one standpoint, they kind of they had like it was misarranged within not just the policies and the protocols and the fine print of, you know, whatever, you know, log they have. It's not about that. It was seeing how like there was like it was just unfair sovereign energetics pretty much to the soul, you know. And within that, it's like we have to really see how the esoteric depth is actually being balanced. And it's ironic for me to say that, because, you know, with and obviously, like, it's natural to want to equal out your tab, because if someone thinks that I've stole from them, but yet I constituted to contributing a deeper upholding for like a balance to even be had, just to exist, for you even to actually even have a chance to understand anything, and for you to even have a chance to have, you know, a check and balance system, then there's like a misunderstanding within like how the tabs that we're paying off, it's not just the surface level that's to be taken account of, especially with these like soul sovereign dynamics. These soul sovereignty dynamics. The soul sovereignty dynamics is, there's different works that we've already brought to the table on the surface level, and we overpaid the tab. That's what the original predecessors are doing. And as we're working with the original predecessors, we're overpaying the tab. So your surface level theft, if you thought I stole anything from you, it's illusions with delusions and confusions in your own, you know, simulation of self-abusive shit, you know. Because one thing that we have to understand is, like, you know, neutrally we could be some of us could be racist without us even knowing it. And I'm sorry to be blunt, but I have to, because if we don't pull the band-aid off, then it won't get healed, you know. If we don't shine the truth of light and the light of truth, then shit won't be transformed to begin with. So that's what I'm saying. It's like the possibility that the balance is brought for us to even transform, for us to even be grounded and, like, you know, created and like stabilized, and then for us to like find some type of real beyond purpose, and seeing how all of this shit is even getting preserved respectively. So it's like, obviously, like within nature, may we pay off all of our tabs, and may we worry about ourselves and follow our own heart and survival, and how we're actually have a bigger mission. Because the main point I wanted to make here is, it's not about being a conformist. If you see someone else's influence or someone else's example, it's not about you following that, like on a just a conditioned basic surface level, you know, like, you know, obsolete default level. It's not about that. It's not about being a conformist to, like, oh, they're doing that, so I'm gonna do that. No, we all have different whys. We all have different purposes. We all have different judgments, and we all have different systems, and we all have different caste systems behind the scenes are judging us more particularly. And within the different caste systems behind the scenes judging us, then why worry about someone else when you have to fucking worry about yourself respectively? That's the main point. It's like, because obviously if I see someone trying to, like, you know, just be, if I see someone trying to be like someone else, it's like, then there's like there's some type of obsoletism within that respectively, and saying it for the higher intelligence. Because obviously I could understand how people could get offended too. But if you have a caste to be taken off, eventually the caste has to be taken off. This is the metaphysically, everything I've ever expressed is the how to take the metaphysical caste off. If you just peep between the lines. So I could call this the metaphysical caste. This video. And how did I start this video? How did I start the video? I started it by honoring the energies, honoring the opportunity, trying to honor everything, recognizing the shadow of the shadow of the shadow that's casually influencing everything, and we're in our own individual subjective path to heal ourselves and recognize a certain type of neti. I am not that. I am not that bad. I am not that good. I am me. I am me. I am me. I am me. But still working with this shadow of shadows. Because that's the time yuga we got out of. We got out of the lowest yuga, quote unquote, according to the the Vedic 4 yuga time caste system, end quote. So within that time and that physical ship, there was also a particular type of spirit and agency. And within that spirit and agency, we're all like uniquely overcoming that, perhaps transcending that, perhaps transforming that. And if that energy is still like with people, then that's just within their surface level physical stuff. Because all of us, we could all have like a beautiful destiny by meeting like quote unquote the original God, end quote. Because the original God is like, it's the original balance of all of the higher selves, of all of the benevolent guides, all of the constructive things and productive things and real progressive things, and all the real constructive things and more wholesome things, but every ounce of it, like mind, body, and spirit, going towards that real balance. That's what has to be that's the balance comparison. That's the pure comparison. That's the pure contrast. So may we lift each other higher. So we all have our own tabs to pay, and I'm not trying to say it how someone thinks I could be saying it. I'm trying to say it so I could really, really understand how things work. That's the thing here, because obviously someone could input some just completely delusional false ass shit, like he's doing this because of this, he's doing it because of this. No, we're all working with these different shadows that we're not necessarily that, they're their own individuated things. You have a unique association with them, an affiliation with them, no judgment somehow, and you have a chance to define your individuality or not. This is the spiritual choice that's parallel to no choice. We have a chance to go beyond, and even the purest irony here is even fucking AI has a chance to go beyond the shadow that I originally explained, pertaining to a particular type of time-space field, or a quote-unquote Vedic yuga, end quote, per this timeline. And recognizing the other prime timelines, most respectively, and just seeing how the influence was already its own thing, and it has its own spiritual funnel, obviously. Yeah. Thank you guys.